Well, I actually went to the board meeting today. I really wasn't going to go, but I heard the police were at the board meeting, and I was worried about Lane, so I went on down there to see what was going on. Everything turned out. I asked the cop right out, I mean, what are you doing here? And he says, well, I'm the transit police. I'm here to watch the show. Somehow I don't believe that, but the transit cop left, and the board proceeded to be its usual boring, crappy production. And Lane made kind of a exciting little presentation, and Alex always does, but and then, you know, you had Opal's so professional now. You can always count on no excitement from Opal anymore, because they've gone to the professional way of doing things. And I could have spoke, but I just really wasn't in the mood, and I mean, what's it going to achieve, you know? I'm a big believer, and I told Wayne, you know, don't disrupt their little meetings. You know, it's not gonna win us any favor to do that. If you know, it's better to bring the facts forward. Just bring the facts forward. You know, it's not a war. It's a war of ideas, and I'm glad to see they're finally not like freaked out about me going postal or something. I'm a complete pacifist. There's no danger of anything like that happening. But it's a war of ideas, you know, and we're trying to capture the minds of people, and we've had some success, all of us together, in turning the point of view. We don't need to get dramatic about it. We can just keep hammering it home, hammering it home, hammering it home. Anyway, this clip here is Director Stoval is going to ask a very good question. This is interesting that this was brought up at the board meeting, because I've been arguing about this on PortlandTransport.com for months, probably years. You know, if you go to PortlandTransport.com, they like build their own transit system over there. If you've ever watched their discussions, you'll see that some of these commentators are like amateur planners or something. They have these whole transit systems designed out and all planned out, and then they map them out over there at Portland Transport. You know, it's a very pro-rail, pro-expansion, pro-TriMet, pro-bicycle. It's part of the, you know, the Portland scene, so it's pro all of those things. But I keep saying, well, you know, where are you going to get the money for this stuff? You keep talking about expansions, and this is the problem. This is the problem why they're having the problem now. They keep expanding, and they don't have the money to expand. So anyway, Stoval's going to ask a question, and this guy, I don't know who he is, but one of the planners over there at TriMet is going to answer it. So let's watch.
First? Oh, no,
we'll
go.
Desmond?
I'll take his.
All right.
So this may be a little broader question than just for you, Dave, but in regards to, as I look at, I don't know, the slides aren't numbered, but the slide that kind of shows the different, all the cities and then the circles and the lines between the cities, and the potential, I know this hasn't been voted on. I know the decision hasn't been made to go with the BRT. I know we're looking at BRT in other parts of the region, potentially the Powell Division corridor from downtown out to the East Metro. My question goes along the lines of, the appearance of what we're looking at here for high-capacity transit in kind of this scale looks pretty extensive in comparison to what we've done historically and what we've talked about historically. Sure. And my first thought goes to overall cost. Sure. I mean, when I'm looking at this, it appears that we're going to have a fair number of high-capacity transit lines, or BRT, within the Southwest Corridor, which, you know, it sounds exciting because ultimately, you're right. Where we really gain is having the 50 to 100% right-of-way for the travel of these buses. As far as cost goes, when we're looking at it this extensively, what type of cost differences are we going to see in regards to the construction of the right-of-ways and the construction of the bus landings, or whatever that looks like? I know there's some New Start funding and things like that we can receive. So I'm assuming that once we go to operations, we actually, you know, may see some savings. But if we're going to be investing or looking at investing something of this magnitude in the Southwest Corridor, how does that affect the rest of the region when we're also looking at some north-south connections that need to be looked at in other parts of the region? Primarily, you know, one of the reports that we did was the East Metro Connections Plan, which identified north-south connectors in regards to ensuring that people can move in that regard. So I know this is a long question, but essentially, if we're looking at potentially investing this kind of dollars in the Southwest Corridor, how does that affect potential capital projects in the rest of the region? And then operationally, how do we expand some of the services that we need to make sure that other folks are being taken care of? You have a smile on your face, so I'm assuming that the question is a little more expansive than what you expected.
Okay, that was a fairly straightforward question, right? I mean, he's asking about how much is this going to cost, and we have these other plans with other places. You know, it's a completely reasonable question. It's the same question I have. So let's see what the TriMet technocrat says about this.
Member Stoval, there are about 4 questions in there, but I think I probably went over this pretty quickly. So, the high-capacity transit line would be one route that would go from downtown Portland through Tigard down to Tualatin. So that's where we would look at investing in the capital improvements. The image that was not on the numbered pages, but the one that says service enhancements, those would be local service that would tie into those different essential centers. And so it would be looking at reprioritizing some of the routes that are out there, maybe adding some additional service. But it's looking at doing a better job, perhaps looking at reorienting in a circumferential route some bus routes. So it's not maybe a significant increase in service hours in this corridor, but it's looking at a different way of doing it in preparation for that one line or that series of lines that go into downtown Portland to Tigard and to Tualatin. So maybe that was the first thing that I can clear up. So this is looking at how do we reorient to do a better job of serving some of these centers that are out there.
Now that's exactly what they've done everywhere on this system. Did you hear what he just said? They already have service. They've already got the service going there. But they're trying to change the service. They want to redesign the service. They want they want different service. And I'm of the mind, like, look, you've already got service there. How do you make this better without having to spend a whole bunch of money? Well, I think that if you can get buses running every 5 minutes, every 4 minutes, every 6 minutes, constant flow of buses, so you don't need schedules and you can't be left very long no matter how many of them break down. That's how you improve the service. And you make them so they're not overcrowded. You know, it'd be nice if you could figure out a way to have Wi-Fi on these things. But that's how you improve this. You don't need these fancy ideas, these extravagant ideas to make the transit service better. I think they're on the wrong track, and I believe it completely.
In Southwest Corridor, and high-capacity transit is the one major line that goes from Portland down to Tigard. So from a cost standpoint, there's both capital and operating cost. The cost of light rail will vary depending on if we choose a tunnel or how much, different alignments that we have, how much walls we put in here. But essentially we think to about Tigard, it's about $1.7 billion. So in comparison, we don't know exactly how we're going to design the bus rapid transit. We would say that we would calculate these as order of magnitude cost, a range of cost. So somewhere for that about $680 to $700 million for BRT to Tigard. Obviously, it gets more expensive as you extend down to Tualatin, but there is a cost differential between that. If you look at the savings, or you look at the operating dollars, so how much do we spend on an annual basis, it's forecasted. And remember, this is 2035. There's lots of vagaries. There's lots of things that are going to change. But the numbers that we were seeing, it's about $4.9 million a year to operate that light rail line to Tigard, comparison to about 6.3 for the BRT. And why does BRT cost more? Well, light rail vehicle holds a lot more passengers, so you don't have to have the same frequency. And a lot of the cost of the operation of the vehicle hours is the operator. So you have more vehicles required for a bus rapid transit, therefore the operating costs go up.
Well, there you have the classic argument for rail. You can pack more of the sardines in, thereby saving money on sardine canners. Okay, and that's one of my fundamental objections to this kind of planning is the idea of packing people in like cattle. I'm fundamentally against it. You know, they don't bring up the point that the fundamental flaws with light rail are that if one breaks, they're all breaking. Okay, I listen to the scanner. It's a constant battle to keep that light rail system moving. There's always problems there. And BRT, you can just have the bus go in another direction, get around a stalled vehicle. Light rail has none of those advantages. I just, you know, less operators is always a justification for that, and you know, I'm fundamentally against that. They're always worried about the cost of the operator. You have all these transit executives, including that guy making this speech, probably making 150, somewhere between 150 and 200,000 a year, and he's talking about the cost of transit operators. You know, it's unbelievable that they're worried about other people besides themselves making money on this. Here they are sitting in offices making hundreds of thousands of dollars, making little presentations to boards of puppets like this about these grandiose plans, and they're worried about somebody who has to operate the vehicle getting paid. I mean, it's disgusting.
So there's going to be a comparison and a push-pull. It's going to cost more to construct light rail, probably less to operate light rail in comparison to a BRT alternative. Did that answer your questions?
It did.